Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review. Today from Mattel in their Masters of the Universe line, we are featuring the Lords of Power Mer-Man. Alright, so this is an older action figure from 2021, and I think I actually reviewed it already, but this was a gift from my good friend Keith, and I thought it'd be fun to revisit this fantastic action figure. So let's dive into the deep, murky depths and check out Mer-Man. Okay, so now it's time to get up close and personal with the Masters of the Universe Origins Mer-Man, the Ocean Warlord. Alright, so I've reviewed this figure before, possibly maybe twice already. This figure came out way back in 2021, so it's 5 years old. This was a gift that was given to me by my good friend Keith. We were getting together for game night, and he collects Masters of the Universe also. And he's like, "Hey Lou, do you want this extra Mer-Man?" And I was gonna say, "Sure, I'll take it." You know, I'm not gonna say no to an action figure. So what we have here is the Lords of Power Mer-Man, and spoiler alert: Mer-Man's one of my favorite characters, and I don't think he appeared in the new live-action film, which I saw last night. Unless he was in the background as a minor character, I don't recall seeing him. Hopefully they bring him on board if the movie's successful enough and they do a sequel, because Mer-Man was one of those characters that as a child and also as an adult I always enjoy hearing him talk. There's just something goofy about him. And then I don't know what else it is, but I'm always fascinated by like ocean dwelling creatures and people. I don't know, there's just something weird that appeals to me. Alright, so we have Mer-Man here. It looks cool. It comes with that bony, scaly looking armor that he's known for. You have the Lords of Power logo at the bottom with the Sword of Power just gunning right through the logo. On the back, beautiful illustration. You know, we have She-Ra taking on Mer-Man. And I apologize, that's not She-Ra. Teela. But then again, I'm not sure if there's even supposed... Oh yeah, this is the original design of Teela. For a second, I had a brain fart there because I was wondering why she was blonde. All right, so yeah, this is the original, I believe, Lords of Power version of Teela here. If I'm wrong, correct me down below. Sometimes I get my MOTU history kind of confused. And then we have a sword. And when I was younger, I always thought his sword looked like corn on the cob because of the weird texture on the blade. The figure swivels at the waist for like punching action. It's like spring-loaded. And this kind of takes me back to 5 years ago, when the line was still kind of young, going into its, I think, second or third year. We have He-Man, we have Faker, Skeletor, we have Fisto, Evil-Lyn, and then Mer-Man. I remember the Evil-Lyn was a figure I always wanted, and I think I did eventually get it and review it on this channel, because this was kind of like the repaint. Alright, so it's been a hot minute since we first looked at this figure. As usual, they come with a little comic book, which, even though I'm a huge comic book reader, I've never read any of the Masters of the Universe comic books. This one actually has dialogue. You know, some of the later comics, they were kind of like this lazy and they didn't have any text. But they're beautifully drawn, and I think they're just a cool throwback to the old mini storybooks that we got with the original line in the 80s. It's kind of cool because if you're a kid, it kind of sparks your imagination and gives you an idea of how these characters exist in this universe. It comes with the little instruction manual that tells you which pieces of the figure are removable. Because like most Origins figures, you got swap body parts. So you got interchange the head, the arms, the crotch piece, the boot. And then we have Mer-Man here. I don't know what it was with these action figures, but everything seemed overpacked. You know, I don't think you needed to like wrap every like sword early on. And then I hate removing all the plastic ties that kind of hold the figure down. You know, McFarlane toys are notorious on their DC Multiverse figures where there's just too many. Every now and then you might get that one figure where there's just the waist tie, and I'm like so grateful and happy for that. I know I could just rip this open. I don't know why. Alright. I'm just turning into Mumbly Joe right now, so just bear with me. Let's get this off. Alright, so this one was kind of painless. Sometimes they'll like anchor down the figure with like ties on the wrists and the ankles also, which just makes it a horrible experience. Alright, so like I said, I loved the Mer-Man as a kid. Seeing him in the cartoon was always funny to me, you know, hearing him talk. And the figure itself, you know, it's such a well-designed character. You know, for like a ocean or like swamp-dwelling, you know, monster or character, you know, I think he really embodies those qualities in the character's design. You know, the head kind of has like a weird, almost axolotl kind of look, but like with armor plating around the face. Has this kind of like weird, like scaly, bony armor plating on the chest, which kind of reminds me of, what was that dinosaur? Ankylosaurus, I believe it's called. You know, much like most kids growing up, I did commit to memory a lot of dinosaur names when I was little. And yeah, it's just such a fun looking character. You know, he has kind of like the webbed monster feet with the toes, but then they really play on the weird like swamp ocean monster vibe with the weird kind of like things around his legs and arms, you know, with the fins. It's very shark-like. And then the sword, like I said at the beginning, you know, when I was a little kid, always kind of reminded me of like corn on the cob. You know, it's yellow in color. It kind of looks like, you know, corn on the cob with a funky texture on the blade. The figure stands in at about 5.5 to 6 inches, depending on if you have the legs extended. The articulation is much like other Origins figures. You know, he has head's on a ball joint, so it kind of rolls around nice. The arms go up and outward, bends at the elbows, swivels, wrists, at the waist. Oh, I take it back. The waist is not spring-loaded. You know, it's just a simple swivel waist. Legs kick up. You have articulation in the knees, the boots, and then the ankles. You know, it's such a fun character. You know, Mer-Man for me is always one of the core Masters of the Universe villains. You know, whenever I think of like Skeletor's Rogue Gallery, I always think of immediately the first ones that come to mind are like Evelyn and Beastman. But then right behind them, you know, I have characters like Trapjaw and Mer-Man. You know, for me, those are kind of like the heavy hitters on the villain side. And it's a cool figure. And then for comparison, here he is next to 2000, or not 2000X. Here's Standard Origins, He-Man right here. You know, and then we also have the 2000X Origins He-Man. So yeah, the Origins line, it's been a hot minute since I've reviewed an Origins figure. But yeah, I'm still very much in love with the toy line. You know, they've come out with so many figures, and I say this in a lot of videos. I'm surprised at the longevity that the Origins line has had. You know, when Mattel brought back Masters of the Universe at retail, it was one of those deals where I thought it was going to be one and done in maybe like 2 or 3 waves, but here we are. You know, like I think like 5 or 6 years later, and it's crazy. So yeah, great figure. You know, if this is something that you haven't added to your collection yet, you know, go for it. I know there's the other versions of Mer-Man, but for me, I think I'm a little bit more partial to the Lords of Power one. I think there's just something about the color scheme that this, you know, I find really appealing. All right, so with that being said, let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.